The cost of not planning a project is just extreme. You've got to slow down and plan a CapEx project.
As an operator, I think it's always been a good idea. And Mike, I've worked with you over the years, is to reach out to you or to Jensen Hughes to help write that scope and develop those relationships rather than me trying to do it on my own, because
Hi, this is Ted Kelly with another Ted's Hospitality Minute. Hey, today is special. It's the relaunch of Ted's Hospitality Minute. We've been away for a minute, but now we're back, and we're coming back better than ever. Hey, our guest today is Mike Johnson with Jensen Hughes. He's going to come on and talk about what every hotel owner should know about replacing a fire alarm system in their hotel. In addition to that, we've also got one of our very own trusted advisors, Mr. John LaHaye, who's going to join in on the conversation, lend us his experience and expertise as well when it comes to planning, executing fire alarm system upgrades and replacements. So, Mike, tell us a little bit about you. Give us a little bit more about your background, your experience, number of years with Jensen Hughes, and all the wonderful things you've done over there.
Yeah, thank you. Again, my name is Mike Johnson. I'm a senior vice president with Jensen Hughes. I've been with us for about 23 years, and Jensen Hughes is a global fire protection engineering and life safety code consulting firm that does so much more. As I said, I've been here for about 23 years in a number of roles, from consultant to leadership positions in operations, and then leadership positions in business development and planning. My current position is a senior vice president of strategic accounts, which includes many of the hospitality brands and owners, including Marriott, Hilton, Hyatt, Aman, Four Seasons, and IHG, amongst others. Throughout my career, I've been mostly on the technical side. Before Jensen Hughes, I worked for a major fire alarm manufacturer for about 18 years, and then I moved over to the consulting side in 2003. And that's about it, Ted.
Wow. Hey, that's a lot, Mike.
Yeah, yeah,
That's an awful lot. Hey,
it's been a
John.
great ride.
Yes. And we've enjoyed the times we've gotten to work with you guys too. John, give our audience a little bit of a background on you. We know you're a jack of all trades, but we know you're an expert when it comes to capital projects, like executing capital plans. Talk a little bit about your background real quick.
all right, thanks, Ted. Yeah, I've been in the industry for 35 plus years, in the hospitality industry, in facilities maintenance. I've worked with several of the larger companies, Marriott being the largest and the longest tenure, and then White Lodging and a little bit at RLJ Hospitality, all in facilities, doing projects, maintaining hotels. One of the topics today is fire life safety systems. When I was at Marriott headquarters, I replaced dozens and dozens of fire life safety systems at Marriott hotel products over the years. And that's what I've been doing. I joined Ted about almost 4 years ago now in project management. So I'm helping Ted with his clients do from fire life safety to chillers, water heaters, boilers, roofs, facades, basic project management services for hospitality.
Awesome. Awesome. So let's talk real quick. So I think many hotel owners hear the words fire alarm consultant and assume it's simply about meeting code. In reality, it is a tremendous amount of work, planning, engineering, strategic thinking that goes into this before you ever talk about really upgrading a fire alarm system, right, Mike?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Some of the things that I've personally seen owners challenged with is they hear the word, your system is obsolete. And that's where really the CapEx projects begin with, is hearing your service provider say, your system is obsolete. We can't service it or get parts for it. At Jensen Hughes, we go out and do assessments at hotels and really evaluate the hotel and the system of whether the system is really obsolete and what that means for the owner or for the management firm. And we start the planning of the project. Does it need replacement? Can it be migrated from one panel level to another to save money? Can it be a phased approach? What does the AHJ say? All this really revolves around planning the project, because of the cost of not planning a major capex project, as you both know, is very expensive midway through the project and at the end of the project. So we try to evaluate migration options, full replacement versus phased approaches. We also get engaged with ADA considerations when you start touching systems. ADA and bringing up compliance to the ADA rules and regulations is very expensive if you don't do it properly. And then the biggest consideration that I think ownership misses, and quite frankly, management firms miss, is the interface of the fire alarm system to the other systems in the building, specifically the smoke control system. If you don't plan your interface into the smoke control system, the authorities having jurisdiction will dictate your project moving forward.
Right.
And at the end of the project, those two systems have to work in harmony. And if you don't know how that smoke control system works before the CapEx project, you need to evaluate it and find out how it interfaces. Because that's throughout my career, that's been really the biggest problem or issue that's come up at the end of projects, is the smoke control system.
Right, right. So let me ask you this question. What are some of the early signs that an owner or a property would start to see with their fire alarm system that says it's nearing its end of life? What typical things would they run into?
Yeah, it's a myriad of issues can pop up, but the system constantly going into trouble conditions, ground fault conditions, which are wiring issues, maybe water intrusion into conduits can cause ground faults or opens and shorts in the wiring. And those are really kind of minor issues, but they kind of multiply over time, where if this system is constantly in trouble, the front desk or the PBX operator of the hotel is just hitting the button of silencing the panel, and they're losing confidence in the fire alarm control panel and the fire alarm system in general. So wiring issues with ground faults, trouble conditions, and then false alarms. And false alarms are very expensive to hotels, where, if you have to evacuate certain floors of your hotel, or if you're in a general all-call situation, programming situation with your hotel, say it's a low-rise and it's an all-call, you're dumping your whole building out. And that's a very expensive experience. And it also gives your clientele the lack of confidence in the in the property of, hey, this fire alarm system went into a false alarm, and here we are sitting on the street at 11 p.m. So that's when you see wiring issues and the service provider can't fix them, or false alarm conditions, those are real key indicators that you need to have a full evaluation of your fire alarm system, or sprinkler system for that matter, looked at and evaluated, and a possible plan put in place.
If you've got a fire alarm system upgrade coming up in the near future, replacements, upgrade, you just want someone to help you figure out the pieces, feel free to reach out to us at Interserve Hospitality. We'd be happy to help. And also, you can reach out to Mike Johnson over at Jensen Hughes if you have questions specifically about fire alarm systems. But if you need someone to help you put all the pieces together, feel free to reach out to us.
Yep.
Hey, John, what kind of problems did you see and along those lines in your experience?
Well, that's leading up to what Mike said. He talked a little bit about obsolescence, and that's the biggest thing that I've ran across over the years. Mike, what do you think you should be planning, ahead? I mean, when you're seeing what's the, typical age of a system, and when you should start planning ahead? Is it a 2 years out, 3 years out, or how do you see that? And then obsolescence, is there a way to extend the useful life of a system? I mean, are there parts available to get another year or two while you're planning, a replacement of the system?
Yeah, the manufacturers are getting better and better with their notifications of obsolescence. Sometimes owners and operators are caught off guard, and all of a sudden they just are told that their panel's obsolete. And what does that mean? And typically, you should request a formal document from your service provider or the manufacturer, which outlines how long that panel is going to be serviceable. Parts are available. It's a very regimented document that the manufacturers come out with, and when you are aware of the obsolescence warning or notification, is really when you need to really do a deep dive and start planning. Typical obsolescence letters come out. I'll just mention one brand of EST. They sent out a obsolescence letter and a migration path type notification in 2023 for their EST3 panel. That gave owners and operators a little bit of time to understand, hey, those parts are available for a certain amount of time. You better start planning, because after a certain date, they're not going to be manufactured, and the obtaining those parts may be very challenging. So when we get involved with the project and the panel is obsolete or in its obsolescence warning time frame, we put together a pretty aggressive 3 to 4 year CapEx plan, so the owner can start budgeting for a major CapEx, either migration of changing the one version of the panel to the same manufacturer but upgrading the panel, or going through a full bidding out of a CapEx project and a full replacement and code upgrade. So there's many considerations there.
When you're replacing, is it the panels or is it panels, devices, and wiring? What should one plan for, or what do you see? I mean, do you have to replace all of the wiring and the devices when you're replacing it? Or have they gone beyond their useful life too, or how does that work, so we know sort of what we should be looking at or listening to from our vendors?
Yeah, that's a good question. And again, when we come out and do an assessment, we're not just looking at the fire alarm control units and fire alarm control panels. We are looking at them, looking at their internal components to make sure that they are backward compatible to the existing smoke detection, heat detection, manual pull stations, along with the notification appliances. We include that in our assessment, because sometimes when you get those obsolescence letters or notifications, it will tell you that the peripheral devices, like a smoke detector, are also not being manufactured and not sourced. So when they go into trouble or fail in the future, you may be, kind of in a pinch point of having to upgrade all of the devices. So we look at all of those considerations, and then wiring is another key issue. When we go out and do an assessment, we take a look at, the codes when the panel or when the system was installed versus current codes. We look at, again, device locations, appliance locations, and then the wiring, and specifically the wiring as it relates to survivability, which is, like a 2-hour survivable riser. We look at all of those type of things and then advise our ownership groups of what the best path is. And where we really want to do is reduce the amount of risk that the owner or operator is under. And we try to design systems and plan a system to include code compliance and brand standard compliance, and then decisions can be made after that. We try never to over-design a system, because over-design of a fire alarm system or a sprinkler system for that matter only leads to added cost in inspection, test, and maintenance. So we try to do a brand standard and code compliant system.
Along those same lines, how do they budget for that based on occupancy, hotel operations, brand standards? I know you mentioned that. How do they budget for that? Talk a little bit about that.
Well, that's it. That is the art in this. Is again, when Jensen Hughes goes out to do an assessment, we look at building construction. Is it a low rise? Is it a high rise? Does it have an atrium in it? Does it have a smoke control system or a stairwell pressurization system? Are there ballrooms? All things are taken into account. And for our experience, we've done hundreds and hundreds of these type of projects over the years. We have rough order of magnitude pricing that when we do an assessment, we include, all the code requirements, the brand standard compliance, what's the deficiencies, and then we get into CapEx planning, our recommendations, rough order of magnitude pricing for a migration, rough order of magnitude for a full replacement and code upgrade. So we give the operators some choices and some information, and then have further discussions with them. But our rough order of magnitude pricing is really broken down by device count and industry standards that we've developed over the years, or by a square footage of what our experience is over many, many projects. And we build these different rough order of magnitudes for the owners. And then we discuss, do you want to do it all in 1 year or one project, or do you want to attempt to talk with the AHJ and do a phased approach? So it's not such a big bang on the CapEx budget for, say, 2027, that maybe it can be stretched over a 3-year period. But those are discussions that have to occur with the authorities having jurisdiction.
Yeah.
So,
Do you
okay.
find that, I know we get into the capital planning for renovation and other major maintenance CapEx. Do you find that it's a good time or a bad time to try to incorporate the fire alarm system upgrade during the renovation, or at some other point, say in the season of a hotel? Does that work good together, or is it not?
Yeah, that's one of the when I used to do assessments, that was one of the first questions that I would ask the director of engineering at the hotels. Is there a CapEx plan for a rooms renovation? Because rooms renovation, you're going to have rooms out of service. That's going to affect your RevPAR, your ADR. It's going to affect, obviously, occupancy and the ability to house people in the hotel. So that is typically, in our eyes, a great time to marry a major fire alarm CapEx project with a rooms renovation. When those rooms are being, say, gutted for an FF&E and maybe some ADA room additions, that is the time to marry the fire alarm CapEx project, because the rooms are down, they're torn up pretty good, and then the fire alarm contractor can follow that, and electrical contractor can follow that project along, and they will not be coming back into a newly renovated room and tearing it up, and then the painting and patching issues arise. So you don't want to spend money twice, so to speak. So
Right.
we try
I would think that would be the same thing if they fail to really plan for the fire alarm system upgrade, and they get the renovation done and then find out that they're having problems with their fire alarm after the fact.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you have the fire alarm contractor possibly saying, "Oh, we put in a brand new fire alarm system and somebody came and tore it up, and the warranty could be affected." So marrying those two projects, though, does take an extra level of project management and flexibility with the fire alarm contractor, understanding that they have to get in and get out. When those rooms are down, they've got to get in and get out. So when those rooms are brought back up, their work is complete. Let's say, it's a 9-story building and they start on the 9th floor, and they have a very regimented schedule to follow, and they have to have flexibility built into that also. It's that's a big consideration when you're doing a capex project, is flexibility of schedule. Of again, hotels generate a lot of revenue in their assembly space, like their ballrooms and meeting rooms. Sometimes they're empty. Those are the times that the fire alarm contractor during a capex project needs to be nimble and dive into those areas that are empty, get that work done so it's not affecting the revenue generation of the hotel. And we take that all into consideration.
I was wondering, are there specific brands that you'd recommend, and are there any that that are older, that obsolete, that you wouldn't recommend, or are I know there's 2 or 3 major brands, but what are they out there? Because I guess depending upon where you live and what city you are, there's stronger brands than others. What's your thoughts on that, Mike?
Yeah, all the major fire alarm manufacturers are very, very good operating platforms. You've got Johnson Controls, you've got Kidde Edwards or EST, Siemens, Honeywell, Notifier. Those are the major brands, and we have great relationships with the corporate teams and the strategic teams with those brands of manufacturers. And when we come in, if we're hired to do an assessment and write a specification and possibly do the drawings and take the project out to bid for the owner, those are the brands that we're going to bring, because we know they're going to be around tomorrow. They've been around for hundreds of years, literally, and they have they also bring the best product, the better service, and the ability for the owners to have some choices. Should they have problems down the road with service? There's like with the EST model, they have distributorships. If you have a problem with one distributor, you have the opportunity to talk to another to come in to take over your building and do the inspection, test, and maintenance. So you're not the word proprietary is thrown out there quite regularly. Each of the systems each of the manufacturers have a proprietary system, so to speak. Some are a little bit more proprietary than others. But those 4 or 5 major manufacturers are the ones that are going to be invited to most or all of our, if we're involved with the bids. And we talk with the building, the property. We talk with the owner and all the stakeholders and get their input. Oh, you don't like company X because they've let you down? Well, they may not be included in the bid. Then it's really up to the owner. But we bring suggestions all the time and recommendations all the time. Yep.
Yeah. So that brings up the point is, there are companies out there, and as an operator, I think it's always been a good idea. And Mike, I've worked with you over the years. Is to reach out to you or to Jensen Hughes to help write that scope and develop those relationships rather than me trying to do it on my own. Because, we might be getting something that we don't need, or we might not be getting it to code, but reaching out to you, a consultant, should be a high priority, I would think, for any owner to do. So you meet code and you get the right product in there for the right type of hotel.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mentioned on my introduction that I do work with, or we do work with Marriott International, Hilton, Hyatt, Four Seasons, Aman, all these major ownership groups or brands, and each of them have brand standards. And um, we help develop, in many cases, we've helped write the brand standards or edit them with the brands. So we really are inside the brand standards quite regularly. And then out of our 1,900 employees, we have 450 of us that are on NFPA or ICC code committees. And what that means is we have subject matter experts that can effectively provide solutions or know the answer to most any code question or code requirement. And not just the answer, the intent, because we wrote the codes, or we're heavily engaged in writing most of the codes in NFPA. So that's a value that we bring to owners, is that we know what system requirements are, what NFPA requirements are, and because in our case we have 100 U.S. offices, we have that local knowledge of the AHJ requirements, and then the emerging technology that that this industry is going through, the 520 hertz signaling in guest rooms. That's missed many times on code upgrades. The fire alarm contractors don't include that in bid. The first responders radio systems or DAS systems. Many AHJs are now requiring those in all buildings, not just new buildings. We can help with that. NFPA 4 integrated testing. That is a hot topic. Many AHJs are now requiring that, and that is affecting ownerships groups in their planning for inspection, testing, and maintenance. And you have to know those requirements. And then finally, like some of the newer emerging technology that we're heavily engaged with, and it helps owners all the time, is on the EV technology, car chargers, putting car chargers in, say, underground parking garages. That the level of risk involved there, we can get involved and help with that. And then the where hotels are headed in the future, possibly with battery storage systems or ESS or BESS systems. We help with that quite regularly. So it's really an owner engaging a consultant. I always kind of equate us to a security blanket. We really we're looking out for their best interest. We're not selling parts, and we're selling engineering services and consulting services and reducing their risk. I mean, that's ultimately we're reducing their risk.
Wow. That's awesome. Hey, Mike, give me a second here. I got to give a shout out to our sponsors and talk a little bit about our hospitality stuff. Be sure to subscribe to Ted's Hospitality Minute on YouTube. You can follow us on Apple Podcasts. You can follow us on LinkedIn as well, and Spotify. And if your organization needs an experienced owner representation, capital project management, facility improvement, especially fire alarm systems, make sure you reach out to Jensen Hughes and Mike Johnson. And if you need the owner's representation piece, capital project management, third party, definitely reach out to Interserve Hospitality, John LaHaye, myself, and we're all on LinkedIn. And there'll be a link in the podcast for you to click on, and you can reach it to the additional information. But Mike, one of the things I wanted to go back to, and you mentioned it earlier, you kind of touched on ADA, which is a hot topic, I think, at all times. And then I also wanted to hear you talk a little bit about the smoke piece in terms of how fire alarms have to integrate with that system as well. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, a common thing that is missed in CapEx projects. Again, we're not involved with every CapEx project in the world, but when we get a call that during a project that is, say, mid-project or coming to an end, and then they have a authority having jurisdiction tell them your ADA rooms aren't aren't correct or aren't configured correct, or the number is not correct for the size of the hotel. And there's very strict uh, counts of ADA rooms that are required in hotels, and then the dispersion of the rooms, the room types. You can't have them all just stacked and have the same type of guest room in all of your ADA rooms. So we get involved with that quite regularly at the beginning of the project and really start planning out where the amount of ADA rooms that are required, the configuration inside the ADA room, the addressable smoke detection and the strobe locations, and then the dispersion. We have on staff, we have over 20 people that's all they do is accessibility consulting. They're ADA experts. So I work with them and they tell me, yep, you need 25 rooms and here's the dispersion. And we work with the rooms manager before the project even starts. We sit down with all the stakeholders and build that into the plan, build that into the design, because these ADA rooms require higher output strobes, more strobes, and that affects the design of the fire alarm system, the amount of power supplies, the amount of strobe circuits, so on and so forth. And we build that into the project at the very beginning, so there's no surprises 6 months into the project. Now that's on the ADA side, and again, we also have the ability to look at other elements of the hotel and do a full ADA assessment, not just the ADA guest rooms, but your pool areas, your parking garages. They all have to be ADA compliant, your restaurants and so on and so forth. We have the ability to take a look at that during our assessments. The interface with smoke control, again, those are very complicated systems typically. And when I say smoke control, I'm talking about stairwell pressurization in high rises or smoke exhaust in a atrium condition. Maybe some of your assembly areas have exhaust systems. And the interface between the fire alarm system, when it goes into alarm, and what the smoke control system, the interface between that has to work. But what does not occur is the verification or the knowledge of how the smoke control system actually works. What fans turn on, what fans turn off, so what dampers close, and so on and so forth. If you do not understand the sequence of operations of the smoke control system or stairwell pressurization system, I would almost guarantee the AHJ will make you understand that at the end of your project. They will require that to be tested, and the interface, and they will ask for the original rational analysis and the design documents and the mechanical documents. So you've got to do your homework, because again, that is a big pinch point at the end of the project typically. So, and again, we spend a lot of time looking at that during the assessment and finding out, how it marries together, so to speak. And that will be ownership groups will find during the NFPA 4 end-to-end testing that they will have to comply with in the future. Fire alarm to smoke control end-to-end will be a part of that NFPA 4 testing.
All right. Hey, John, you had something?
No, I'm good.
All right. So we talked about emerging technologies. We've covered a lot today, actually. We talked about integrated testing, all of the good stuff. Are there any new risks that owners should be watching for, Mike?
One, again, technology-wise, I think most of the manufacturers, major manufacturers, are on top of emerging technology, some better than others. But one risk that really is standing out, and here I am sitting about 23 miles north of Seattle, and we have smoke in our backyard from fires in Canada. And all over North America now is covered with smoke from 900 fires or 900 plus fires in Canada alone. And there's lots and lots of wildfires uh, in the U.S. We've been engaged by several companies to do wildfire risk analysis. And I think wildfire, it's as we learned in Los Angeles in 2025, late 2025, it's not just happening in the forest, in the wild in Colorado and Northern California anymore. It's urban areas that are at risk of wildfires. So we have two groups that's all they do is wildfire urban interface, or we call it WUI consulting, and they look at hardening properties, taking away the risk associated with wildfire. So that's a emerging risk that is probably not going to be going away in the near future. And we offer that to any of our clients, whether they be hospitality or any other market for that matter. So that's a risk, and then the risk associated with the I mentioned it before, the EV technology and the risk associated with EV technology as it relates to adding them EV chargers in parking garages is a big issue. Again, it adds to the risk of a fire down in a parking garage that may the sprinkler system has to be evaluated and possibly upgraded a little bit. That's a risk that we see emerging, so to speak, in the hospitality marketplace, along with wildfire.
Talk about some of your lessons learned.
Yeah, lessons learned. Again, hundreds and hundreds of projects. Company-wide, thousands of projects of CapEx projects, right. Or really, our lessons learned are from small writing alternate means and methods for a hotel to a major CapEx project in some of the largest hotels in the world. Our lessons learned is really the cost of not planning a project is just extreme. You've got to slow down and plan a CapEx project. You've got to build flexibility into the schedule. You've got to get buy-in from all of the stakeholders. You can't have an IT director upset that you're taking over some of their fiber with this new technology that fire alarm systems use fiber. You just cannot have discourse with the stakeholders. So you have to plan the project, make sure everybody's informed, and really over communicate. That's the key is flexibility, and you have to over communicate during a CapEx project. Again, we talked about the ADA and smoke control systems considerations. Another thing is whether a consultant is brought on board to run your project or be involved with your project or not. If you're just soliciting, if the owner is soliciting bids from contractors, one of the, I always say check page 3 of the proposal. Page 3 is typically the exclusions, and what is excluded in a fire alarm system replacement bid typically costs more than the bid itself or the work itself. When a fire alarm contractor excludes electrical or excludes painting and patching, you better have a plan, or excludes fire watch. Well, you need to ask those type questions of like, why you have to ask that question. Are we prepared for them to come in and put holes in our hotel and we're going to do the painting and patching? You have to understand the requirements of fire watch. You have to ask those questions. How long is the system going to be down? And what are do you know the requirements of the AHJ in San Diego or versus San Francisco versus Las Vegas? And then the biggest thing that, one of the biggest lessons learned is brand compliance or brand standard compliance is you never want to go through a Hilton property and go have a Hilton property and do a major capex project, replace the fire alarm system, and have Hilton's corporate engineering team come through and do a evaluation of your hotel and write up a PIP that your fire alarm system is not brand standard compliant or is not code compliant, or have Marriott come through and write you up and give you a PIP for a non-standard fire alarm system just after you've spent months replacing it. So brand standard compliance is a big issue, or not a big issue. It's important, and you have to understand what those brand standards are. They're documents that people have to understand and be aware of, and design the systems in compliance with them. So those are just a few of the lessons learned. Again, the big thing is just slow down, plan the make a good choice of the contractors, but slow down, plan the project out, and have flexibility built into the schedule and the team. It's just really forming the team is the most important thing right at the beginning of the project.
That is awesome. Man, Mike, you know what? You are a subject matter expert,
Yeah.
man. You could go on and on.
Oh yeah. Well, we've the three of us have met many times at Hotel Point over the years, and I met John a couple of weeks ago down near SeaTac, because he's my friend. I went down there, and it's just I really enjoy doing what I do, and we just at Jensen Hughes we've got such a great team. Like I said, 450 code committee members. It's just I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I know how to use resources. And if you have a question, all I have to do is make 2 phone calls, and I'm talking to the person that wrote the code and or has written the book, and it's just so impressive. It's just it's fun. I mean, it's just really fun to bring those type of resources to bear on a project. So
Yeah, that is awesome. All right, I'm gonna wrap it up. I got one last question for you, and it's a short one. If you had to give a hotel owner, real estate investment trust, management company, if you had to tell them 3 tips that you would give them that they need to know or be looking at for their fire alarm system right now, what would it be? Three things that they should always have on their agenda or on their mind when they're thinking about their fire alarm system. What would it be? 3 tips.
well, they have to really have confidence in their fire alarm system. They have to count on that. It's a silent system until it's needed. So they really have to have confidence in that system. If they don't, they have to engage people that can help add to that confidence. If they're having problems, reach out to a professional. Ask for assistance. The problem is not going to go away. I mentioned ground faults and wiring issues. Wiring issues do not fix themselves. They need to be corrected. And then finally, if they're planning a CapEx project or know that they're going to spend the money to go through a CapEx project, engage somebody like Jensen Hughes to help plan that project. Again, the directors of engineering at the hotel level, some of them have never gone through a major CapEx project. Some have gone through 3 in their career. They may not have the expertise to lead that project, and we're here to help them and reduce that risk.
That is awesome. John, you got any tips you want to throw out there on things that you've seen?
My tip is listen to Mike. Mike knows it. I've reached out to Mike over the years, and Mike's always been one of my best and favorite resources. So thanks, Mike. You're always there for me, whether it be with Marriott or with White Lodging or RLJ. You've been there. You've been my resource. You've helped me through several projects. So my tip is check with Mike. He's a great guy. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, John. And
All
thank
right,
you, Ted.
everybody, put Mike on speed dial if you got questions about your fire alarm system, upgrading, and wanting to at least get an assessment done on what the status is of your system. Reach out to Mike, and like I said, his information will be here on the LinkedIn page and also on the podcast, so you can click on that and get to him. Thank you, Mike, again for your time today. John, thank you for jumping on. I know you're in the middle of the ocean somewhere on a boat, but I appreciate you getting up early and spending a little bit of your vacation time with us. Always good to see you, man.
Yeah, I'm up here in British Columbia on Vancouver Island today and heading up north, 300 miles north. So,
oh, wow.
See you later.
You got it made. You got it made. This has been another Ted's Hospitality Minute. Thanks so much for joining us in the relaunch of Ted's Hospitality Minute. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and LinkedIn. And if your organization needs any kind of experience, owner's representation, capital project management, or facility improvement consulting, we'd love to connect with you. And as we mentioned before, anything regarding fire alarm systems, definitely reach out to Mike over at Jensen Hughes because he's an expert. Thanks so much for joining us, guys. We will see you next time.